So, what I've been doing is gather up collectibles. I got all the statues now, all the audio logs, and all the text adventure game things. So let's do the text adventure and see if that helps us now. Thing. Our story begins in the remote village of Zinshire, a hamlet just west of Zinport, in the country of Zinland, on a planet known only as Zin. By nature, the Zin people are an uncultured and slow at the blood, easily entertained by such diversions as arm wrestling and counting the spots on one's back. The people of Zinshire most especially fit this description, so I'm sure you can already foresee the struggles I endure in life. The first of those struggles were my parents. My father, a simple butcher, was a small man with a fierce temper. For all the things I learned from my father, the one that sticks with me the most has to be that's the knowledge. You're not even paying attention. My father was as dim as the second sound of the 14th of January. A lust for power. My father, though, was thick as the bag hair on a newly born infant, did indeed have an unconscionable hunger for control, while he never managed to rise higher than the head office of the village once he nonetheless carried the dream. I thought it would be I thought he most assuredly not. My father's butchering technique was deplorable. Alright. My mother, on the other hand, a gifted seamstress who married far below her station, wanted me to enjoy the things so many others could not. I remember clearly, on the eve of my 13th birthday, he had taken me to temporary children. Alas, cigarettes, camphor, rice, youth was booked for the season. Pastry shop? Oh shit. One might think a place such as Zinshire would not support a fine bakery, and you would be right. It closed after a year, but it was not for lack of trying on my mother's part. She wished for her only child to have an appreciation for the finer offerings of life and to beget my education with Zinka's delectable pastries. Not only did I sample the goods at Zinka's shop, but I spent the summer there sweeping the floors, setting the counter, and even learning a bit of the culinary arts. I took to baking with zeal. Clients enjoyed my baked goods, and I became known throughout Zinshire for my ganache-drenched eclairs. While my class were amongst the best ever created, I was actually known for something else. Fruit tarts. Alas, the climate of Zinshire is not conducive to growing fruit. Cream puffs then. I can still feel the layers of crisp dough snaking gently on my tongue, a wish and a smooth release of sumptuous cream. Even though Zinka's endeavor was not long for the sport, I continued to sell my renowned cream puffs door to door. A business which thrived, I must say, doing well enough to supplement my admission to the most prestigious private school in Zinland. But that, my friend, is another story. I had acquired the money to attend the finest school in Zinland, but that was just the beginning. While I would love to say Zinkoff Preparatory Academy embraced me with open arms, the truth of the matter is, I was not the finest student. In order to gain admission, I had to endure rigorous physical and academic testing, whether it would grant me access to the legendary Hearts of Burn. As is usual for admission to a school of such acclaim, the person whose test was became our parents. My word, what sort of barbaric school did you attend? Drawing up a sport. While participation in competitive sports is encouraged and a good source of income and institution of higher learning, testing for such a thing was known. Scholastic aptitude exam. As was my mother's wish, Zinkoff Prep was an institution that prided itself on scholastic offerings. To that end, it only accepted candidates that displayed academic prowess and further promised. So it was that I endured many weeks of standardized testing and training prior to my entrance exam. I'm proud that I took studies well and managed to bring up my score across the board. Still, there was one subject above all others I had a particular affinity for. As you may have already guessed, the subject was mathematics. But I'm no stranger to the Euclidean paradigm. Mathematics was not the subject that drew me in. Science. To be honest, when I joined the laboratory, I experienced greatly upon science how to be a rather dull subject. Things art history. The written word. I had, like most, didn't learn to read well in tutorial, but there was all very dry text such as manuals and design documents. It wasn't until this far more serious pursuit into academia that I came to love the classics. How surprised was I that some of the finest literature in the universe came from a tiny world planet more than 10 million light years away. But it would be some time until I visited the seemingly unremarkable way station. I'd fallen in love with its artistic offerings already. One author's work in particular captured my imagination. Guess I'll describe the principle. Dr. Seuss. The good doctor's work is among the finest in literature, there's no doubt in that, but I did not get lost amongst his colorful characters and mythical lines that has much fun. Jane Austen. Oh, okay. I don't know who that is, so... Jane, sweet, sweet Jane, how like my mother's dreams you are. Even now, all these years later, just the thought of Emma, Eleanor, and Elizabeth expressed a moment missed it, brings a lump to my throat. Oh, the intoxicating back and forth between Miss Bennet and Mr. Darcy. How I could read those lines forth toward infinity. It was my celebrated essay on Jane Austen's body of work that caught the attention of the Zinyak admission board, not only allowed me entry into their prime institution, but secured my level position as head of the English Language Education Society. Thus was my love of literature cemented and access to the comparability academy. I'm terrible at reading today, assured, which is why I met the teacher who would help me find my life's purpose, so this is not a tale. I can recall my first tentative steps into the Preparatory Academy. I was a lad from the countryside coming to the big city, eyes wide and mind eager. I had never seen a building so large or so many finely dressed young people yet full of knowledge. It was the first time in my life I ever felt I was somewhere I truly belonged. Of course, not all the Zinlings were there were tortuous, studious-minded folk. Predictably, it wasn't long before I crossed the path of a brutish young man named Zinyak. We instantly loathed each other. It was obviously from the start of the textbook which with my coat of many colors. Are you calling something? Low class? Typical, no? I was now entering the proud and prejudiced society I'd read about so eager just a month prior. And Zinyak was a poor and a constant thorn in my side. I found solace in my studies. Literature had engaged me early on, but the offering of Zinyak had allowed me to expand into even higher moral subjects, such as intergalactic warfare and how to exploit diplomacy for personal gain. What a world of knowledge there was to explore. More than any of the Zinyak faculty, Professor Zinlow informed my later days. I remember clearly it was just 2 weeks into my first year when Zinlow pulled me aside after class said to me, "These people are all your inferiors." Zinlow must have been well aware of that. As a professor seeking tenure, he was obligated to maintain a facade of impartiality, I'm sure. Has anyone ever told you that before? What a remarkable thing to say to a diplomat of that. And he was right. I was the poor son of an ignorant Pacha. He had made it to the finest university on the planet. I wasn't just pursuing my dreams, I was living one. Those words kept me strong through 4 years of demanding study, kept my mind clear from physical distraction and to thank for my graduating with honors from Zinyak Preparatory, at first for anyone from the hamlet of Zinshire. Upon receiving my diploma, I knew exactly what I must do to drill impacts. Short-sighted, let me think. And then, out of operation, don't you know? Yes, I admit I let my personal dislike for that slowly overcome me, and I snapped him from his neck like an old bark flicking of a dying hope. My time at Zinyak Laboratory now at an end, I entered yet another phase of my life, one that would take me to a great many extra vacations and allow me to realize finally my true potential. Since my years of fluffy child next to me, I shall regulate the book of Zinyak, the young man. After my time at Zinyak Laboratory Academy, I did what all young people must do. I entered the military. Prior to my days at Zinyak, I admit I did not look forward to this long passage, but after I relished the idea of owning myself in the specimen I would like to become. Basic training was, as it is, designed to be a particular sort of house. I don't know what the rules are where you come from the leader, but military training for the Zen Army consists of a grueling 8-week course that pushes recruits to the breaking point. Some did not survive the training and were sent off to work in the mines, or forced to join the Zen National Office Staff, famous for several galaxies for how hideous and music is. In order to endure the training, I often relied upon thoughts of childhood. Are you daft? We covered this in the very first chapter. A wise man once said, without a target, we are all just bullets in the wind. I wrote that in my journal last week, and it's true. Whenever you find yourself facing seemingly insurmountable challenge, perhaps envision all the turncoats, opportunists, and megalomaniacs that are just waiting for you to fail, so they can swoop down and take meat from your bones. The furnace of pure hatred burning inside me, nothing would stop me from overtaking any challenge set before me. It was evident in the latter days of my training that I was going to excel at. It was evident even then that I had conqueror's blood coursing through my veins. I took to every task with gusto, never accepting anything but the best for myself and all those around me. I had vision, I had drive, I had everything needed to seize the universe by the nebulous and naked mind. After basic, I entered service and was sent to the front line of the great war that was going on planet Bedar. There, I led the charge against the great Bedar BN Commander Franskott, using my innately keen insight as a surprise Franskott advice. Marion said, "No, but I like the way you think." Selections from the national vote, nobody deserves that. Stealing is best in the power of darkness. While it might sound like a simple tactic, you should be aware that the average day on planet Dallas is crucially long time. But I and my charge held our position until the attempted moment to strike. We infiltrated Franskott's compound, trampled his men under our mighty boots, and shut out the dirtless bedchamber. When I pounced upon the fool and smothered him with his own hot fear. Even now, looking back, I can't help but smile. From there, I led the charge after numerous enemies of the Zen Empire. Soon, the entire Bedadian army fell before us, and we had yet another notch on our already impressively carved belts. A magnificent victory under my belt, my victory spirit saw fit to restore to reserve the glory of the Almighty Zen commendation and my first offering promotion. Recognition breeds contempt through, and I made many enemies throughout my military career, but perhaps none more scathing, more heartbreaking than Zinyak. The Brutus Caesar. Zinyak served with me well against the Bedadian army, but his pride got the best of him when he crushed my character. Of course, my face and invisible, I didn't see that. Readiness to command. Citing my unquenchable bloodlust, cold and calculating, and lack of conscience, all the things I wanted at such high regard during training, Zinyak dared to suggest that I was unfit for high-level command. Our broad performance superiors in the mock tribunal held similar to satiate Zinyak's whim. I assure you, where I was called upon to defend myself against these litigations. Complying with the tenets of the charade, I took my seat as defender. pierced the strained cries of the power told the charges were leveled against me. Again, each one I explain myself. Admittedly, I may have used some harsh language as emphasis to underline my point, but I conducted myself as one out during the legal proceeding. After carefully explaining myself to the council as from my point of view, this was not confidence against me. Afterwards, I entered my to the downstairs and where we stood. Nothing as behind me, I not only fulfilled my role in the Zen army, but I excelled at it. After many more successful terrestrial campaigns against our cause, the officials something to statues. I appreciate the deal, but let's not jump ahead. Number 1 does not get promoted to Emperor. Give me my ship. Indeed, no longer was I a simple peasant on our military death adventure, but now I had my hands firm upon the rudder. Metaphorically speaking, of course, the planetary death vessel was steered by protective navigation systems. Now a celebrated member of the Zen army with a seasoned crew at my command, I look Zen. Zen may not be the most cultured celestial body, but it's still my home. Egal, I'm on. I don't have to pull that now, thank you. Headed out for the venture. It was time to leave terra firma behind me and venture towards the stars. After forcibly convincing my crew to stop at be a part of the position, with this foray in my honor, we lifted anchor and spread ourselves. Again, metaphorically speaking, towards destinations just where the is taken. And that, dear reader, is where my tale gets most exciting. Like a siren calling ships to the rocks, the velvety expanse of space has been a harsh mistress for many. To me, the unconquered reaches were a challenge and not accepted at the end for. So many put so blindly unaware of how many of their existence I will not permanently back towards greatness. Oh, how I long to be that hand. I'm not a soul easily satisfied, so the much destination must be a planet that could change from the collective mind of the Zen army, but my own fragile ego. So again, and I tell you, I'm pretty acumen, as if anything good, tactical instinct. The terrestrial victories I had accumulated more like of failure to adequately test my keen technical instinct. The maneuvers and strategies employed by so many of my folk were both pedestrian on the best days. I knew somewhere in the celestial room there must exist who could possibly challenge me. Unfortunate I was that I only had to recreate 12 civilizations before coming toe to toe with the military and military boss of the Zinyak theocracy. Despite what you may have heard about the people of the Zinyak continent, I assure you they were ahead of the rest of the martial powers. Perhaps most impressively, the Zinyak had mastered diplomacy. The Zinyak theocracy, so-called diplomats, could keep us still an amateur debating. Shields. By harnessing the geothermal energy of Zinyak's molten core, the theocracy were able to throw a Dyson sphere-like shield around the entire planet. It sparkled in the sun like a chorus line of stars, irradiating the sheerest gleam of light. The way it shattered in the wake twilight coming based on simply breathtaking. Upon our arrival on the planet's surface, the head of the theocracy imposed a figure named Bishop that from for not only his own life but the life of his people. Always a fair man, I agreed to meet him on a level field of battle. Mano a mano as true gentlemen. I even let him select the contest, much to my surprise he chose swords. Oh how I wish. The board of games. As part of the theocratic doctrine that I think is flat surfaces. Arm wrestling. And I thought I had left such uncultured notions back on Zin. I learned then that the so-called sport had reached a far wider audience than I had hoped. Yes, Cook chose to challenge me at arm wrestling. How, for society so advanced in technology, thought I, could they be so taken with thrusting hands and pushing? Little did I know that the cephalopodia and anatomy of the jetting combined with the curved surface that passed as tables allowed them great leverage on the sport. Oh, how clever Kotick was. The daring me to trap the plate upon my own prejudices. Well done, indeed. As it turns out, the winner of that match was me. No. It was a draw. No. Yes. Crocodile uses an automatical advantage to best me at the infantry test of strength. After shooting him through the enormous eye, congratulated his cause on a job well done. Giving the 13 people in the quarter we made AC work of the pathetic credit, and to this day I keep Quicksuck's desiccated tongue in my blue pocket, a Robert Fuller. Though I wasn't aware of it prior, the interesting Howard was a rich source of gemstones and minerals and rare reserve on other planets. With the resource in great demand at our disposal, I was able to impart many more contests about the richness of space. A fascinating story that I will tell you soon. As you indubitably are already aware, the graduate trajectory was just the beginning of my story career in the Zen Army. I still had numerous conquests awaiting me, including my first venture out towards a planet in the native scholars what's called Via Lactea. Possessing astute foresight as I do, coupled with my at times all-consuming need for control, I knew that before I set out to do anything more, I must get into some food. To be honest, I think I would have traveled all the way to Japan rather than opening the finest chefs in the Netherlands. More ships. Not to be immodest, but my fleet was already quite impressive, like second in command. Even I cannot be everywhere at once, but in order to make the appropriately subordinate while still being able to have some essential me time, I had to have someone I could trust implicitly to oversee the orders I gave. Someone who could be my eyes and ears and also tend to my every whim without question. There was a plucky young soldier named Zinyak who stood craning crowned and shoulders above the rest. I knew he would be make a fine lieutenant, but as his customary to become success as birth, I first administered a quiz. Oh, I was not about to appoint someone as my military surrogate, a manservant who was unable to appreciate proprietary and tradition. I knew that if anyone were to even attempt to promote the proverbial route, that they had to be able to do so in many conceivable situations. I constructed a battery of examinations designed to test his etiquette across all manners of occasion. They really were brilliant, if I do say so myself. I'm proud to state that Zinyak passed every test in spectacular fashion, though we did almost have considered when Rafa died. As was custom in his native home of Zinberg, the place is founder and due to the death of the age of 3 years ago. Zinyak won. Oh, and I should not do it so that I use it in cultures as greetings. And most pure tradition that simply got loose. Having endured my father's atrocious need for tradition, so glad I've obeyed the use of Zinyak in any onward recipes. Attacked. In what was a regrettable lapse in judgment on the part of famed Union technician Ariel the Furious, the Bune Armada attacked us in mid-space during the most important synchronized testing. After restoring the Boon fleet ship and playing all the crew members, I beheaded Ariel the Furious with a bread knife and recommenced the on-board incinerator. Zinyak then went to enjoy a most lovely meal full of fresh food steaks and a delightful conversation. His testing over, I formally named Zinyak as my lieutenant servant and we continued our trek into space. But my grand plan I set about pulling the engine was on the nuclear superchargers first, starting with you recount up as one of the biggest coaches in the universe, you should rate high of the south. Cured nerve drives the central exposure. The cured nerve drives have been a blight on central exposure since time immemorial. Really, I was doing everyone a favor by raising those heathens to the ground. But at the unified nations of Central exposure show me any gratitude at all, of course not. Monster they cry, it's like Nothing short of preparing what genocide was going to shut them up, which thankfully did. From there I continued on my path, conquering every planet that stood in my path. Yet despite the sense of unparalleled accomplishment, I felt something was lacking. It was not until later that I would stumble upon my greatest achievement, a defining moment. Yes, I had the key to the universe in my grasp, yet something was missing. These victories, numerous though they were, could follow. I found myself wanting more, needing more. What could I possibly be missing? I had everything. Civilians trembled when I announced my presence. My own army left in fear of my mom. What could I possibly be lacking? Then, like an evolutionary link crawling from the top of a commodity soup, it hit me. I had taken so many lives for what purpose? Conquering was not enough. I needed to test them, to challenge them, to reject them. It was then that I decided to build petting suit. I considered it but originally opted for something else. Simulation? No. I could not trust those who fell before my might roam around unsupervised in the real world, but a virtual one. There was another matter entirely. It came to me as a vision, a vast interconnected web of simulation was designed not only to contain the best design engineers, to break the worlds and make them subservient to me, Zinyak, Galactic Overlord, and Actors Queen of the Zin Empire. Oh, did I forget to mention I killed my predecessor and came to some alone for my own. My apologies for the oversight. I tasked the entire birth overseeing the simulation's construction, without the physical bodies of my fallen force and a nutrient-rich suspension designed to accommodate equimolecular metabolisms. Meanwhile, the minds would go on in a world of my own creation, based on each subject's favorite food. I do wish you were taking this more seriously. One short of memory, and how would account for taking a minute to break the will exactly? Deepest fear. Yes, everybody aside from your humble narrator is afraid of something. Permanently a loss or staying off-walk, enormity, spiders, but subject to each victim to the deepest fear, to replay the most dreaded moment over and over and over again, until the psyche and shatters and their minds become malleable between my eager fingers. I could control them, I could have controlled everyone. Once the simulation was complete, all I needed to do was throw a party. It's an idiom about chronic chilling. Test subject. I knew better to test the simulation upon the Marrakech and Zinyak. Zinyak was not eager to partake in the simulation, but after a brief, though intense and painful discussion, he saw the benefit of the architect being the first to walk into his own building. For hours I heard Zinyak screams echo through the ship like the mellifluous song of a child in the morning, and I knew then that the simulation was my raison d'etre. It would set the standard for forward-thinking empire created in the universe, and if we should ever mention civilians, I would push them and claim the design for my own. After extracting Zinyak from his personal nightmare, he gave me his most wholehearted approval, and asked what his version of it was. He said, to be honest, Zinyak didn't tell me what this sphere was, and I didn't press the matter, but I had other things to do. The simulation was my crown jewel. I took to universal conquering its renewed zeal. I found a pleasure and forced subjugation of such a platform I never thought I'd have again. My enemies didn't see me fall by my sword, their wounds snapped like the bones of the mouth that supported me. I no longer had only the echo of the dying voice of another than mine, and the whole world of person imagined me, and we rooted out the progress. Oh joy, oh cascade bliss. And I could visit them whenever I wanted. I had complete control. I had their brittle consciousnesses in my hand and could play with them, like flicking seas into the wind. The simulation was not perfect, nothing else, but even the master was missing. Milo is short a couple of appendages, but it was mine, and it was beautiful for those who tested my patience by attempting escape. I had protocols in place. When needed, I intervened personally, though it was very necessary. Many of the subjects, though there were exceptions to simulation's rule. I thought there were exceptions to simulation's rule, but I put everyone off them summarily back in place. So it was I went about collecting the exemplary specimens of cultures throughout the entirety of the known world, with one exception. A certain destination whose exploitation I wished to savor. A place whose artistic contributions had first set me upon my path. There was someone there I especially wished to meet, and with the time-bending abilities of the membership I could. But also I knew any planet capable of literary work of that caliber must also breed warriors unlike any other. I was excited, eager, every part of my essence shivered with anticipation. With the might of this empire behind me, I stood out towards the far corner of the universe. There was a new galaxy to conquer, and I'd only enjoyed its culture. What's that do? Well, that we did. See you later till the next part.